Our Parsha today is Parshat Noach. First of all, I'd like to say if you are watching this on YouTube, we'd like you to subscribe and like and hit the alert button. It'll really help us out. I'd really appreciate all the people that's already subscribed to our channel. We're in the Parsha, which is called Noach in Genesis, the 6th chapter. And if you would like to turn to it, I'm going to title this, and you'll understand why later, Noach, a prophetic glimpse into our times. And I'll explain later. And it comes down from a place in the Zohar. We're going to do a timeline of Noah's life and go through the elements without reading it. And then we're going to come back and have a discussion. Obviously, there's a rich teaching that Rabbi Avner does about Noach himself. And so I'm looking forward to hearing his input into the class or into this group. So the first part of the verse or the first chapter reads out and it talks about Noah. And this is in verse 5. It tells us that he was born 156 years after creation of Adam. And his father was Lamech, named him Noah, meaning rest or comfort. And when I think about that, we should be called the house of comfort for the nations. B'nai Noah. It's a beautiful term, the idea that Noah's name means comfort, because he believed Noah would bring relief from a painful labor which caused the curse on the ground, the difficulties that were going on, the corruption, the theft, just the unmitigated crime that was going on, and the ignorance or ignoring anything that would acknowledge that there was one true master of the universe. There were odd practices going on, and we already saw the beginning of idolatry in which they began to venerate the sun or the moon or the stars, and it was a horrible time. So God warns Noah of a coming flood to destroy all of life, all of humanity's wickedness. He instructed Noah to build an ark, a wooden vessel, and provided specific measurements and materials, which is found in verse 13 through 22 of the book of Noah. Noah considered righteous and blameless in his generation, it says, began building the ark in obedience to God. We know that this long period of time took place before the ark was finished, before the rain came. And there was this intense effort by Noah to get the job done, not be averted by the criticism, by the joking, by them thinking that he was just has lost his mind. And yet he continued to building in hope that people would see this obvious monstrosity of a ship that he was building, this ark, this teva, and he was building it for redemption to come for those who would enter in. And we all know the story. In the end, only his family went into the ark. Now, Noah spent years building the ark while preaching repentance to his generation. And the exact time of building this ark is really unclear, but we know it was several decades that it took to get it built. In the 600th, and when Noah was 600 years old, it said God told him to enter the ark with his family and pair of each animal's a species, Genesis 7:6. 7 days later, the flood waters began, lasting 40 days and 40 nights, and the earth remained flooded for 150 days. On the seventh day of Ziv, or in May time frame, it appears, and I could be corrected, in 1658, after creation, the water settled and they exit the ark. The waters recede after 150 days. The waters began to recede. the ark came to rest on Mount Ararat. Over time, the land dried, and Noah's family eventually left the ark after spending a total of about a year on it. There is a midrash that says that one of Noah's sons were asked about what it was like on the ark. Maybe it was Shem. And he was talking about how horrible it was and how difficult it was to take care of the animals. Every animal was on a different feeding cycle. Every animal in there demanded to be taken care of because they're animals. And even in one instance, it says that Noah was bitten by a lion or tiger in the process. So we could only imagine, thinking that if you were stuck, we are all stuck in our homes in COVID, but could you imagine being stuck with 7 of your family members and in-laws in your house for that period of time? It would probably drive a very sane man crazy, but Noah did it. It was a really an actual tribulation. The actual redemption itself was difficult to pass through. And you're going to understand how it applies to this day when we begin to examine it. Now, after the flood, Noah and his family repopulated the earth. He became a farmer and planted a vineyard. And our accounts record an incident where Noah became intoxicated, and it led to some unfortunate events where his sons, one of them actually, or his son's son, his grandson, exposed his nakedness, whatever that means, and his other sons covered him, and it was a curse that was then placed on Ham. Very interesting story to say, and we can break that down in a moment. Last but not the least, 950 years was his age when he died. Dying 350 years after the flood. This was found in Genesis 28:29. He's obviously considered a patriarch to all of mankind that lived after the flood. We are all called B'nai Noah. Even Jews are descendants of Noah, but they have a special place and a special responsibility to Torah being taught within the nations. With that being said, I would like to point to something that is found in the Zohar. And Rabbi Trugman actually brought it down so well in a lecture that I heard some time back. And he said that there are 2 very interesting numerical gems in the Torah in this portion. And we read the great flood that came to the world in Genesis 7, verse 11, which says the following. It says, in the 600th year of the life of Noah, in the 2nd month of the 17th day, the subterranean waters from below burst out. In this language of the Torah, the windows of heaven opened and rain fell out for 40 days and 40 nights. What is the significance here? There are 2 things. First, the Torah mentions that it was the 600th year, the life of Noah. Also, even though we usually concentrate on the idea that it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, it mentions first that the lower waters of the subterranean fountains burst out and simultaneously rain began to fall from heaven. The Zohar, the foundation of the book of Kabbalah, which was revealed in the world approximately 800 years ago, though it is based on traditions that go way back before that, maybe thousands of years longer, it's not a prophetic book per se. That is the book of Genesis, nor is Noach, Parshat Noach, considered a prophetic book. But it does say the following, that we might call it a prophetic pronouncement in this text. And it says, based on this verse, where it says, in the 600th year of the 6th millennium, the waters below burst out and the heavens will open. This is the text in the Zohar, meaning that it refers to the 600th year in the sixth millennium. the waters from below will burst out, and the heavens will open, and water will descend, all in preparation for the Messianic era. So what does this mean? First of all, what is the 600th year of the sixth millennium? Right now, as we speak, we are in 5785, and we are in the sixth millennium of the 600th year at this moment, in the sixth millennium. The sixth millennium and 600 years was 185 years ago. Think about that. 185 years ago was that point. So that was 1840s. That's how the 600th year of the 600th millennium is translated in the Gregorian calendar of 1840, and is understood just like when a person has a birthday, for example, and they turn, well, let's say 10, and if you would ask them that whole year how old you are, they would say 10. But in reality, they are 11 years. For certain, they're on the way to 11th years old. They're in their 11th year. So in a certain way, 1840 is the culmination of the whole century before 1740 to 1840. So what happened between that period of time? We can approximate this idea that the lower waters burst forth from the earth. The flooded began to flood the world, and the upper waters rained down on the world, so that we can understand the lower waters as being basically called the secular knowledge, the wisdom that comes from below or beneath. And the upper waters would be the Torah, or the wisdom that comes down. And so between 1740 and 1840, the world changed dramatically. It was the Industrial Revolution, the invention of the cotton gin. The world began to dramatically shift to what we call now the Industrial Revolution. The inventions that changed the way of life. The railroads, for example, came in and were carved throughout the West, and railroads in England began to be developed and connecting different parts of the country like never before. People were able to move from one place to the other. Agriculture began to grow, and because of transportation and because of the industrial age, things could be produced at a much cheaper rate, and food began to be prosperous, et cetera, et cetera. So from that would be considered the 1800s, 1840s to 1800s, this period. The early 1900s, we see aviation come. The 1960s, they flew to the moon. An explosion of technology and advancements in communication and science, as well as an incredible medical advances. The ability of removing a heart from a person and putting in a donor heart, or to put, like they did in Houston, and I remember in the 80s, the first man to have a mechanical heart. And he had this device with hoses coming out and carrying a big box so that he can survive. Now, at the same time, what happened between 1740 and 1840 was actually in 1734. The Baal Shem Tov revealed himself to the world, and he inaugurated that movement, which brought about Kabbalistic wisdom that came from above. He brought about concepts to the earth in such a way that people could begin to understand, especially the Jewish people, understand and integrate that into their Torah knowledge. And so we see there are two revolutions in this period that the Zohar predicted, and that they say it was all in preparation for the Messianic era. Here again, we see the Zohar taking the 11th verse of the 7th chapter of Genesis and making a prophetic statement, and see that it is true. And we see that even though there was always a Jewish presence in the land of Israel, but for the most of 2,000 years, the land was sparse. The land didn't have anybody in it until the late 1700s. Not a lot we're talking about. It was underdeveloped. The first Aliyah of Jews from Europe began to flow into the land. Followers of the the exodus out of Europe to return back to the land. And in the 1880s, it was called the first Aliyah, actually. And now the majority of Jews, think about this, in the world live in the land of Israel. We are in very unique prophetic times, and everything has begun to change as it is understood according to this statement in the Zohar that from the time of the 1740s to 1840s, everything began to change in the lower waters. The Industrial Revolution, modern technology, all of that began to flood, and all of a sudden we realize now we see that Torah has come down. The book of Daniel talks about the age that we live in, or the days before Mashiach. Knowledge will increase. We've seen knowledge. Think about it. It was only just a matter of a number of years ago that anybody could walk into a Jewish bookstore and find books translated into English or their language, but particularly English, where you could actually go find books that were considered rare and only available to the most learned Jewish person or a yeshiva student. And the internet is full of Kabbalistic ideas. Even individuals who are secular have begun to quote Kabbalistic ideas to bring about some understanding of wisdom. And the state of Israel is all about the preparation of the coming of Messiah. We always wondered when this would take place, but somehow we see that October the 7th took place, and it has unified Israel in a way that I don't know that any other incident could have unified Israel. Both secular and religious Jews are beginning to dance together in the streets for Simchat Torah. Beautiful, incredible idea to see young men on the street. I saw this the other day in a video, a young man in a muscle shirt, and he had his tefillin on, and he was wrapping it. And then after he finished that, he was asking other people if they wanted to wrap it. It was somewhere near the market. A beautiful idea. So we understand that the lower waters have come, the upper waters have fallen down, and what has it done? It's elevated everyone who has entered into the Teva, into the ark, into the place of safety. You see, the waters of destruction is destruction for the wicked, but the waters is not destruction for the righteous. The waters are the thing that elevates and bring us above the calamity. So what do I have to say in reference to all of this? That we're living in very different times. It seems to be very difficult and tumultuous. And yes, there have been other times throughout human history where it was bad, the Dark Ages, World War I, World War II, the pogroms, you name it, there has been horrible times. But we're in a time right now that seems to be screaming to get our attention. A battle in this country between righteousness and unrighteousness. A battle in our society that wants us to accept things that we know that are absolutely wrong and evil, to call evil normal, and to call righteousness odd or strange, to call people who are righteous and pure of heart to be odd and different, and that they should be ostracized in our community. Now is the time for us to take Torah and take all of the instruments or the flood waters that have come from the deep, the technology, everything that we've learned, the AI, you name it, and turn it into the very instrument that helps elevate us to a higher level, looking for Mashiach, looking for the day that Messiah comes on this earth. We are getting very close to that place and that time. It is not going to be long, folks. We need to do the work. We need to build and prepare the ark and prepare our friends and family in the knowledge of Hashem, the knowledge of the Sheva Mitzvot, encourage our Jewish brothers and sisters to become more observant in their Judaism and look for the day that Messiah will be revealed. That concludes my portion. So we're going to get right into the discussion. Who would like to be the first on the list? Wherever you want to start, we can start in the beginning, we start at the end. Questions, fears, doubts, unbeliefs, now would be the time.